All right. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm John Fabian, Director of Publications with the American Nuclear Society. I'm here with Emily Farrell from F1000 and Taylor & Francis. And it's a pleasure to be here today speaking about our new platform that we just launched with F1000 and Taylor & Francis. Our new platform is Nuclear Science and Technology Open Research, or NSTOR, and just went live earlier this month. So I'll be discussing a little bit of context into ANS's perspective and decision to move forward with an open research platform that F1000 developed. So quickly about ANS, we're a membership society established in 1954, primarily made up of nuclear scientists and researchers representing government, academia, research laboratories, medical facilities, and private industry. And our mission is to advance, foster, and spur the development and application of the peaceful uses of nuclear science, engineering, and technology. Quite a mouthful, but an important pillar of that mission is our publications platform portfolio. And we see quite a bit of potential for growth over the next few years as the nuclear industry scales up to meet decarbonization needs around the world. And so all of our members have an opportunity to serve on our 19 standing committees. One of those committees is the Technical Journals Committee, which approved this new platform. All right. So our other publications on the platform, really quick, we have industry magazines, Nuclear News and Rad Waste, ANSI accredited standards, the occasional book or two, which we have 3 in the works right now. Our meeting publications, and our 3 technical journals, which Taylor & Francis is the publisher of. My background is in history, so I like to think about topics kind of a linear progression. So when thinking about this presentation, I kind of looked at kind of a timeline of the last 10 years and important dates of what led us to this open research platform. And started off in 2014. I started working with ANS about a year prior to that, back at a time when ANS really did not like change. Back then, ANS was had a very manual production style. Everything was done by pen and paper. There were still typewriters in use at the time when I started. And a digital workflow and an online presence really was a complete afterthought. At the time, ANS, we were facing a lot of financial struggles. We're seeing rising costs, decreasing revenues, and we were just really struggling to compete with the larger commercial publishers. Our publications were still profitable, but that margin was diminishing every year, and we were just fighting that uphill battle. Where our time to publish rates were really low. We still had page charges. Our portfolio was small, only 3 journals compared to the large deals that the commercial publishers offered. And we didn't have any open access offerings for authors. So this is a time when the Holder memo came out. Plan S was making waves in Europe and in the United States, and we were just behind the curveball for many years. So 2014, we tried to modernize our workflow. We signed with an offshore vendor to cut costs, but we still struggled to raise revenue. So in 2017, we partnered with Taylor & Francis to publish our technical journals. And within a few months, we were meeting industry standards for time to publish. We adopted a hybrid open access model for our journals. And we published our first open access article pretty quickly right after signing with Taylor & Francis. And we just saw immediate growth. Within that first year, we started growing our journal submissions. The visibility of our portfolio was way over and above what we had before that. So it was a huge benefit to ANS. That growth and stability that Taylor and Francis provided for ANS allowed us to focus on two perennial topics, removing page charges from our journals and launching a new journal for our portfolio. The page charge issue, I mean, it was evident that was hindering our growth for our journals. And the new journal discussion lasted for quite a few years, and there was just no consensus on journal scope or publishing model. We knew the rising open access trend, but our society and our leadership was kind of reluctant to go that route. So then 2020 happened, quite an important year. For ANS, it was really consequential. We were going through a lot of changes. We had a new strategic plan that established a series of reorganizations and updates to how we conducted business. It's also when I became director of publications. And so in spirit of this change plan that we were implementing in 2020, I made it my goal to present a plan to remove page charges from our journals and to embrace open access publishing and partnering with F1000. The plan allowed ANS to simultaneously remove the last barrier to growing our journal portfolio with page charges and embrace open access and kind of get ahead of the trends that are affecting the publishing industry. And considering ANS was decades behind our competition, just a few years ago, our partnership with Taylor and Francis and F1000 has really allowed ANS to become, I don't want to say a leader in the physical sciences publishing industry, but we're at least ahead of the game a little bit. So some of the benefits to partnering with F1000 I wanted to talk about. As I mentioned before, the journals committee started discussing launching a new journal, but that was kind of a big obstacle. And there was really no consensus on what kind of scope we wanted to do, what kind of model to follow. And that's about the time when Taylor and Francis acquired F1000 and they pitched this new platform to us. I liked it kind of right away. I thought it was really, really interesting, cool, new platform for us. And it gave us the opportunity to use our existing relationship with Taylor and Francis and to have a more broad platform that incorporated scopes. It wasn't like a niche. It allowed us to do broader scope and embrace open research. So one of the big benefits that I see is the flexibility of the platform, the article types it accepts, creating more opportunities for researchers, especially younger researchers, to publish. Our gateways, I'm planning on building those out to support our professional divisions. We have 19 professional divisions that support different topical areas within the nuclear community. I see those gateways as being a way to create data repositories and facilitate knowledge transfer, because we have a very wide demographic gap between a lot of older researchers and retirees and a lot of young members and student members. There's not a lot in between. So there's communication problems between those generations. And then special collections, we host topical meetings anywhere from 5 to 9 or so a year. And our proceedings really don't get a lot of visibility. So we're planning on, and we've been in talks with our topical meetings to start establishing special collections on the F1000 platform. And finally, the platform allows us to get ahead of the open access and open research mandates that the Nelson memo recently is mandating for the U.S. industry. It came out about the time we signed the contract with F1000, so it felt nice that it kind of reinforced our decision to move forward with this F1000 platform. Now, there are still some concerns that our membership have. Primarily, it's with this just being, totally different than the current peer review model that our society has embraced since 1956, is when we established our first journal. And it provides benefits and challenges. And the biggest challenge, the biggest concern is preprint publication. We have never allowed any kind of preprint publications before. We've only, all the papers that we publish have always had to go through the full peer review and production process, copy editing, layout and all that. We've never allowed anything to go up before that process is complete. So the F1000 process of publishing articles online before even peer review was a big concern for our membership, and it still is a little bit. But we've created a custom workflow with F1000 to try to allay some of those fears, but there are still some lingering concerns. And then our APCs is another one. Our membership, they see APCs as some of the page charges. Some of that might be because, we just removed page charges in 2022. So that debate kind of was lingering within ANS for a long time. And while there are the differences, huge benefits for open access publishing, you see increased downloads and citations and lowering that barrier to access to the research. But our membership thinks that the cost is a hindrance to some of our authors. So there's concern that relying on APCs might not be sustainable in the long run, but partnering with F1000 really helps mitigate some of that risk for us. We don't have to take on 100% of the risk. We barely have any risk with it, to be honest. So this is really kind of a win-win for ANS and allows us to experiment with open access. And then finally, open peer review is really a kind of a novel concept for our membership. And I do think over time that it'll kind of be welcomed within the community, but it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve. And that's all I have for our concerns. And then over to Emily.
Thanks, John. So I'm going to, I guess, fill in a bit of the information about what exactly the F1000 publishing model is, how it works, some of the other ways that we're partnering either with societies or also with, in different subject areas, so that you get a bit more depth of understanding of this partnership and the model itself. So just to, not that one, that one. All right. So F1000 launched 10 years ago now, so in 2013, and the idea was to create sort of a unique publishing model that would allow research findings to be more accessible and more usable, more reusable, and to accelerate the potential impact for research. It sort of combines the benefits of preprinting, so the sort of validation checks for preprints, the rapid peer review, the rapid publication before peer review, but with some mechanisms to assure quality, transparency, and trust through the process of open peer review. It's online only, it's fully open access, and covers a variety of different subject areas, but historically the strengths have been focused in medicine, life sciences, and health. We use publishing platforms, and they sort of behave like journals. So they have an ISSN, they're indexed like a journal, subject to the usual sorts of processes for indexation. And all of them take a sound science approach. So it's not a pursuit of an impact factor, but it is, so it's more sort of broadly inclusive research. And there's no sort of screening or rejection based on sort of potential impact. And they're quite broad in scope and multidisciplinary. As John said, F1000 became part of Taylor and Francis in 2020, and also sort of expanded the options that TNF are able to offer in terms of what we can do across the research life cycle for researchers. The first sort of venue that we launched was F1000 Research, which still exists as a space, and it sort of acts like a mega journal. It sort of allows all topic areas, and was the space that we pioneered this open research model, and follows some of the key pillars of open research. So open access as the foundational block, following fair data policies and open research code sharing as part of the requirements to publish, and the transparent peer review. And we do index with PubMed and with Scopus for several of the areas we publish in. We're also expanding the sort of different venues that we have on F1000 that sort of focus in specific subject areas. So venues like bioethics open research, which is in collaboration with the American Society for Bioethics, health open research that has a health focus, materials open research that covers all aspects of material science, and MedEd Publish, which I'll talk a little bit about, which is also a society cooperation, molecular psychology. And then last year we launched our first social sciences and humanities focused venue, which is Routledge Open Research. And it's been exciting to sort of see that uptake and ensure that we have a bit more space for social scientists and humanities researchers that want to publish openly. So there's a real interest in making everything more accessible and discoverable through these this different way of working. Everything is CC BY for data that's CCO, for code. It's rapid because the peer review happens after publication. So once all the validation checks are done, the work is available online, accessible, and then goes through the open peer review process, more transparent with the fair data compliance. We offer a diversity of article options, which I'll talk about in a minute. Becomes then more inclusive because early career researchers or people that are experimenting with different sorts of research than they normally are have a space to publish, and it's more efficient and reduces research waste because you have space to publish different parts of your research product. And this is what it looks like sort of in terms of the actual workflow for authors and what we do along the way. So the article's submitted, it goes through internal checks. So we make sure that there is a data availability statement, that's all in order. So our in-house editorial does that. We issue a DOI to increase discoverability, index with Google Scholar. Then we go through the process of inviting open peer review and user commenting. And that sort of goes in a bit of an iterative cycle, such that if it doesn't initially pass peer review, then once those peer review reports are put up online, the author is able to comment, to edit their work. Those comments are also available online, so you can see how the article's been changed and edited. And then once the article goes through that process and passes peer review, it goes on to indexing. As John noted, we did work closely with ANS to modify this model a little bit. We realized that we needed to make sure that we were working towards sort of satisfying some of the needs of the society. So we modified the first step in the process, and you can see that here, where once the article's submitted, it goes through an additional editorial board screening and the pre-publication checks. So that means that it ensures that the society sees that the article's in scope and that there's no other obvious ethical issues. As John noted, when that's really not been part of the way that researchers have been working with the society journals, it really would have been a difficult transition to entirely remove that out of the process. And we're doing that with two other platforms as well. We have a cooperation with the University of Warsaw International Relations and with Bioethics Open Research. They both also incorporate this editorial check. Then once it goes through that editorial check, it goes through the usual processes of the F1000 workflow. So in-house checks for ethics checks, plagiarism, checking that any underlying data methods are available. And once it goes through that, it's sent on to typesetters and is available to be read and indexed and so forth. And then goes through reviewer reports in the same cycle as I talked about before. So then in the end, sent out to indexing. To quickly go through a couple of other things, and you can see here that the checks at the top, that's how you see online whether it's the article's been approved, whether it's approved with reservations, or whether it's been rejected. So then it can go through sort of further process of editing. You can also see, oh, there's extra steps in there. Okay. You can also see that the validation checks we do compared to preprint servers are more extensive. We do a bit more checking for readability, for instance, methodological detail. We also do things like check on figures and on for image manipulation. And we're going to hear a lot about that this afternoon in the keynote from Elizabeth Bick, which I'm looking forward to. So that's also an incredibly important part of the process. In terms of the diversity of article types, you can see that researchers can publish something very early on in the process. So registered reports as you go along, a study protocol or a method article. So it means that as you're going along the research journey, you can start to have outputs published from your work very early on and all the way along the cycle, all the way along to sort of a standard research article. With the data policy, it's FAIR compliant, as open as possible and closed as necessary. The data can be qualitative or quantitative. This reduces data loss and research waste. It provides good research governance through the transparency processes we have, and it maximizes the potential use and value of research. So we are seeing, and there's research that's been published showing that when data is available, we see a citation impact. A little bit about the open peer review process. So we do have people's identities available to see. When you publish a peer review report, your name and affiliation is attached. ORCID IDs are included. The reports are published alongside the article, so you can read them next to the article itself. And you can see there's you can see the journey of the article, if you like. So you can see the comments and the dialogue between the researchers and the comments from the author, or the reviewers and the author. So for the NSTOR platform, as John said, we've recently launched it. We did a soft launch at the beginning of this month, which has been incredibly exciting to get off the ground. We have, at the moment, we're waiving APCs to get to hopefully get some more uptake as a new platform. We've got the pre-screen in place, and it's compliant with what we know so far about the Nelson memo, the OSTP announcement, and we expect that to continue to be the case. We don't expect that anything else that comes from the agency policies to not be aligned, which is great. So, and you can see what the front of that platform looks like at the moment, and you can see the URL at the bottom if you want to take a look at how the platform's working. Alongside NSTOR, as I said before, we've also worked with another society, the Association for Medical Education in Europe, that previously had published MedEd, published on their own, which was taking a lot of work, was a big administrative burden. They moved it over to F1000 into the F1000 model, which reduced the burden and in-house workload for AME. It gives them the economies of scale with a larger publisher and with the expertise of our in-house editorial teams at F1000. They now have an indexation strategy, so they're aiming. They're now in PubMed, aiming for Scopus. These sorts of ways of working with societies we're seeing is benefiting and increasing the ability to more easily serve open research needs for researchers. So overall, really, we believe that it allows societies to more easily comply with these sorts of mandates and oncoming policies. For the ANS, as John said, it puts them at the forefront. Expands the existing portfolio, gives authors more options, There's space for non-peer reviewed articles like posters and outputs from conferences, and allows for these sorts of the gateways that John was talking about as well. So particular subdisciplines and topics, we can host information there, make them more discoverable. So all in all, I think we're pretty thrilled about the partnership and looking forward to seeing how it expands. I think that's 1 minute left. So if anyone has any questions, we'd love to have them. Oh. That is a good question that other F1000 friends and colleagues in the audience might. Andy, please.
So we've gone to our sector, so they made the decision that we'll go with the fine, not quite getting better. So that report here is very question.
Really to tell on both of those, as Emily mentioned, we did a soft launch in this month, and so I've been talking internally with our special divisions and a couple of our topical meetings to do some special collections to get those first submissions in. The one meeting that I've been working with, that they just held their meeting at the beginning of May. The publications chair is on paid leave at the moment, so he's not responsive. So we've been a little slow getting that off the ground. So, but we do have a lot of interest within our membership. There's been questions about, like, we had one presenter who last minute couldn't make the meeting and wants to publish the abstract and his PowerPoint on the platform. And so we're gonna do that, which wouldn't happen with our technical journals. Our meetings will do a series of abstracts, and they'll do full research papers. And so we're gonna be able to publish both of those. There's a lot of interest with the research papers that'll go up on NSTOR right now. So it's kind of a mix of just simple abstracts and presentations from meetings, and then the full research paper at the moment. That's all we've talked with our membership about. But I'm really interested to start seeing some of those other article types, because I think that's a big benefit of the platform.
And it does depend. I mean, depending on the platform and the different partnerships, we see certain article types more prevalent than others. And again, there are people in this room who can answer those questions specifically if you catch them afterwards. But it will be interesting to see. So maybe send us a message in a few months and we'll see what we've got. Any other questions? Well, thank you all so much for coming. And do come and ask if anything else comes to mind. You can come find us. It'd be great to chat.